And yet, if Americans bring the religion of Islam into the discussion, we're called Islamophobic. ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, has a target on our backs, all in the name of their religion. They have said we are next, that we in America will be attacked just like Paris, even naming New York and Washington and the White House as their specific targets. It's not difficult to understand why Americans have a problem with Islam. Joining me today to discuss this issue is national spokesman for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and author of The Wrong Kind of Muslim, Qasem Rashid. Qasem, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. First of all, before we delve into the deeper discussion about your faith, I do want to ask you, do you as a practicing Muslim condemn the attacks on ISIS, or by ISIS on Paris last week and the attacks today in Mali? What was your reaction to this violence?
Well, not only do we condemn them, but I think to provide your viewers better context, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community are Muslims who believe in the Messiah Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. Since our community was founded roughly 130 years ago, we have been at the forefront of combating this concept of violent jihad. We've mandated that any member of our community that even thinks about terrorism needs to leave our community. So as a result, our community of Muslims, which is the single largest Islamic sect on earth, has spread to over 200 nations worldwide. We have tens of millions of members, and over 130 years, we've never had a single act of terrorism. On the contrary, we are at the forefront of helping refugees, of helping build schools and hospitals that serve people of all faiths, whether they're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, or atheist. We want to exemplify Prophet Muhammad's example of service to humanity. That is what Islam, true Islam, represents.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question then. So you're a practicing Muslim. You say your community is very peaceful, and there's proof of that. But ISIS also claims that they're practicing Muslims. What's the difference between your beliefs? Where is it differentiated?
That's a great question. You know, the Islam that ISIS practices is not only ignorant, but demonstrably the antithesis of what Prophet Muhammad established 1400 years ago. And what's really specific about Prophet Muhammad's teachings is that he foretold a time where the Muslim clerics, the Muslim leadership would become the most, and I'm quoting his words exactly, they would become the most heinous creatures on the face of the earth, that they would create chaos and disorder. And it was at that time that Prophet Muhammad also said that another community of Muslims, founded by the Messiah, whom we believe is Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, would also rise up and counter that terrorism with peace, with love, with compassion, and logic. If you study ISIS ideology, what you find is that their core tenets have nothing to do with the Quran or with the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. There was a French journalist who was held captive for 10 months, and he even admitted that for 10 months we asked them to show us a Quran, and they didn't. These terrorists that were behind the Paris atrocity were caught getting drunk, getting high at strip clubs, and their own family said that they never attended the mosque. So these are ignorant bigots. They're terrorists, no different than Timothy McVeigh or Dylan Roof or the KKK. They have nothing to do with any religion, let alone Islam.
So it's not, in your opinion, an interpretation issue? Because I know that there are references in the Quran to jihad. Can you explain to us what the proper interpretation of that is and how organizations, terrorists like ISIS, misinterpret that in their beliefs and actions?
Yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, the very first time the Quran mentions fighting was after Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims left Mecca altogether. They fled for their lives after a decade of persecution. In Medina, they established a secular government with the Jewish tribes. And at that time, God revealed the first verses that said that permission to fight, permission to wage jihad is given to those against whom war is made. And the purpose of waging that jihad in self-defense is to protect, and the Quran specifically says this, is to protect cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques.
But so ISIS does claim that what they're doing is in self-defense. They claim that Western values, even what we do in America, our way of life, our beliefs, are a direct affront to their beliefs. And that's how they justify their actions, if you will, by saying that that is in self-defense. Is that an incorrect interpretation of the Quran?
Let me tell you something. There's nothing self-defense about raping women. There's nothing self-defense about killing civilians. There's nothing self-defense about destroying churches, about destroying Yazidi houses of worship. Nothing at all. And to even think for a moment that these bigots, these monsters are working in self-defense is to completely undermine I mean, they must think we're completely stupid to think that raping a woman is self-defense. I can't think of a more heinous crime than that. And when we study the life of Prophet Muhammad, not only did he find every possible excuse to forgive people and to avoid any kind of violence and bloodshed, but he even forgave the man who ended up killing his daughter and her unborn child, simply because he said, I made a mistake, I want to repent, and he forgave them, to lead by example. This is not an example that you find in ISIS. And in contemporary society, people ask, well, where is this example of Muhammad, of compassion? And I would point to you the true caliph. You know, ISIS says that they have a caliph. He's not a caliph, he's a terrorist. The true caliph, and your viewers can go to khalifaofislam.com and find the full profile of His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmad, who's a humanitarian, who has built hundreds of schools, countless hospitals. Ahmadi Muslim physicians go to countries all over the world and offer free surgeries, free eye surgeries, free heart surgeries, not because we're trying to convert anyone, no, because we're trying to serve humanity. That is an obligation we have as Muslims. That is something you will never find ISIS doing ever.